Hello, and welcome to Seafood Matters Podcast, the voice of the UK seafood industry. I'm your host, Jim Cowie. In this episode, I am talking with Adrian Bartlett. Adrian lives in Paynton in the south coast. We will be chatting about crab, a subject that few know more about than Adrian.
Thanks for inviting us, Jim. Been in the industry a long time. First generation, really, alongside my cousin. It all started in the 70s when my uncle moved down to Paynton, and we used to go down there on holidays. And Nick said to me one day, "Come on, we'll jump on a little local boat." And that was the Shirley Betty. That was with Ernie Lane. I can't remember what year, but I don't think I was any more than 8 or 9. So I was born in 79, so I was a little bit younger than what I was. But and then we went out, and he was still working a few withy pots, and he was still landing in withy baskets to a local company up on the quay in Paynton, which is still operating, in which some sort of guys now. But the first time I saw a crab, Jim, I didn't know what to make of it. I was definitely scared of it because they brought it up to me, and I was sat in the wheelhouse, and I couldn't touch it, and I didn't know. But the fascination from then started, Jim, really, of going out with Ernie Lane back in the 70s over Easter and school holidays. So that's where I kind of started to my fascination with brown crab, which I'm still passionate about now, a few years on.
And how did it evolve that you eventually come up the opposite end of the country and into
Coming up to your
Scrabster?
neck of the woods. Well, basically, my cousin's first car was better than my first car. I went back farming. We're a farming family from Wiltshire. So his car, he had if I remember rightly, a Ford Cortina 2000E with a vinyl roof. And I had 1100L Escort. And he said, "You need to come fishing." So I drove down to Paynton when I was 17 on a Thursday night, and then the Friday morning I was on his boat at Paynton Harbour, and I just took about 2-3 days to understand what's going on, and he was showing me how to bait a pot, how to empty a pot. And then one particular day we were landing in Paynton Harbour, and the skipper and the crew of a big boat, Bruce Bennett, who passed away this year, my mentor and quite a lot of mentor. He mentored a lot of people down our neck of the woods, Bruce, so it was a sad beginning of the year with him. But they were walking by, and Nick just shouted up on the quay, "Do you need any crew?" And before I knew it, I was mid-channel, couldn't see any land, and thinking, what have I done? What have I done wrong? And that was on the Helen Clare. And it kind of started from there, really, developing my career from the Helen Clare. And then we had an opportunity to jump on the Kingfisher, basically. It was working out of Grimsby, and the Kingfisher's still up your neck of the woods now, Jim, isn't it, with Neil aboard it. And we was working out of Grimsby on her and the Euroclydon. And then the Euroclydon was looking for crew, so I went aboard the Euroclydon. And funny enough, I took Buzz, or Neil, the skipper of the Kingfisher, up to Scotland the very first time. We got caught for speeding in Exeter. This is a true story, in his XR3i, Jim, right? And we used to do 150 miles driving each and sleeping to get to, because Paynton to Scrabster is a long way. And the first time we drove there, we got stopped, and I could see the coppers laughing, or should we say police people, laughing in the car. So Neil got back into the car, and I said, "What were they laughing about then?" And he said, "Oh, they asked us where we were going." And we said, "Scrabster." And they didn't know where Scrabster was. And so Neil explained, and the police were saying, "Oh, no wonder you're speeding." And Buzz said, "No, you want to catch us on the way home." And that was the first time we drove to Scotland. So, and then so we was up there with the Kingfish. Well, I was up there on the Euroclydon off Cape Wrath with a couple of Islay lads, and I've got a funny feeling, Jim, that was 1990. It could be 89, 1990, but I come home in 91 to start working the Helen Clare in the English Channel. My daughter was born in 91, and I was spending too much time away, so I kind of started fishing locally in the English Channel. But yeah, so we come to Scotland and started developing, and I think it's been developed further on. The last time I was up in Scotland is when me and Nick went up there to help load the Ebony up to bring her back down into the North Sea. We honestly thought we were men until we come up to your neck of the woods, and we weren't. We were boys, and I think we're still boys to those boys up there now. It's totally different seas, which we understood, but we learned pretty quickly that we're not men.
Yeah, and so as Buzz, he's obviously stayed up.
Yeah. I think he stayed up there.
Has he been back?
I don't.
Has he been back?
Yeah, no. I think. Well, we had I don't want to go too morbid, but we had a close friend of ours die last year through illness, and Buzz come down then with Kerry and the kids. So I think he does come back down here, but not as often as I think he would like. But it was great to catch up with him, even if it was under difficult circumstances.
Yeah, he's a great character, fantastic guy.
Yeah,
I mean, he got a wee bit of a scare last year, or earlier this year. It was with heart trouble.
Yeah,
and he's went into the hospital, got the checkups, and was told lucky he actually had a heart attack.
Yeah,
and my goodness, I'll tell you what, it'll not be a surprise to you, but you see him walking, he's not drinking, he's stopped smoking, and losing weight, and just
good.
did a brilliant job.
Yeah, I don't know if he mind me saying, but he was, I when he first started with us crabbing, he was under my wing for a while. So so hopefully, as I say, our industries, it doesn't make a difference if you work Scotland, North Sea. Our industry is very small in some which shape or form, Jim, isn't it? We're up in and out of Scotland all the time with Fraser. I was up in Fraserburgh and Peterborough, and we was at the awards and Skipper Expo, and it's surprising who you haven't seen for years that you just catch up and carry on. If it was 10 or 15 years ago when you in our industry, time doesn't seem to play much in our industry, does it? It's just you just carry on, don't you?
That's right. It's a great meeting place, that sort of thing. You meet, it's the same way you get Irish fishermen, and it's a right good catch up.
Yeah, and usually over a Guinness. Well, I can remember walking into Popeyes for the first time when we went up to move the Ebony, and my Guinness was on there before I got out of the car.
So from there, where is Adrian Bartlett's life gone?
Well, my 20s flew by, to be fair, like it does with us all. My 30s started slowing up, but I realised probably late in my 30s that you've got to look. You can't stay at sea forever. You would love to stay forever, but the mind and the body goes. I take my hat off to the Oda skippers and the Oda crew in our industry, but at some point you've got to leave, and it's very difficult to know what to do, because you're on a boat with 4 or 5 other lads or 3 other lads. You're in an industry that's very unique to the world, and when you leave, you're missing something, and it's very hard to fill that missing bit. and I think I found it now, but it is difficult. I even had a spell for some crazy reason. I worked at BMW in a car factory building minis for 5.5 years, from 2001 to 2006, just to try to go on the dark side of employment, and I hated it. I enjoyed I learned a lot from BMW, but that wasn't me going into a corporate world, let's say, or working in that kind of environment. So I've come back down from Oxford down to Paynton and jumped on the Ebony again in back end of 2006. So after having quite a successful career on the wooden boats with the Creole and the Helen Clare, I started working. Well, I didn't work for Nick. I jumped on the boat for nothing to see where it would go. And within a week of being on there, the boat phone was phoning, and there was a load of owners saying, "Oh, could you come and skipper our boat? Can you come and skipper our boat?" So I come straight back into fishing again, and I started working just for one short season on the Etoile de Sons for Robbie Simmons. And then me and Nick was talking one day, and where my life changed within the industry to where I am now and what I do now with the public and with the chefs, all kind of started over a couple of Guinnesses back in 2011, that me and myself and Nick, we started up the really interesting crab company, and we were delivering shellfish from the Helen Clare and the Ebony direct to chefs and direct to the restaurant trade, not the public at this point. And I had one customer in 2011, I'm led to believe, and then we grew up to about 140 customers. But I found, Jim, really quickly, and we was concentrating in the Cotswolds, and then we got pulled into London, that the chefs, put it politely, was naive towards UK caught seafood. They honestly thought fish swam filleted, crab meat come in a pot. They didn't think it come from an animal or a crustacean or anything like that. And there was a lot of misguidance, and chefs want to pick up the phone at 11 o'clock at night, phone the order through, and a mushroom's got to be the right size. It needs to be a straight cat. They were acting like supermarkets. Everything's got to be uniformed. And so I thought, right, I've got to change this somehow. And through the really interesting crab company, we used to do surprise boxes. We used to do a minimum of a £50 box up to a £200 box of fish, but the chefs didn't know what was in there. So my challenge was then is to get these chefs to understand whole fish, and that was our biggest market. I won't mention chefs' names because I'm still associated to a load of them now, and they, especially with Brexit coming on. But one chef, I went in, I never made one appointment. I just used to walk straight in off the street, and if they didn't like me and they kicked me out, there's plenty of places around. So, and one chef said to me, he says, "Right, I've heard about you. Bring me your best next week." So I took him at the best South Devon fish and crab and lobster. And he opened up the box, and obviously it was all whole. And he said to me, "What am I supposed to do with that then?" I said, "Well, put it on your menu." He said, "Well, it's got eyes. It's got guts. It's whole. How am I supposed to deal with that?" And this was a top-end fish restaurant in Oxford. They made their money on fish. And I'm still brilliant friends with him now. And it was him that launched me, funny enough. So I knew there's a lot of work to be done in the UK with high-end chefs or media or people in the hospitality against our fish and seafood. And it's moved on from there in different wondrous ways, really, Jim.
That's fun. That's fantastic. And did he come round to your way of thinking, or did you have to get them filleted for him?
No, one of my best customers.
Excellent.
Because Well, it was him, funny enough, going back even to 2012, where my life changed a little bit more with the public now. Um, the really interesting crab company was invited to a food festival in Oxford. And through this one particular chef, got us a pitch there. And he said to me, he said, I'm on stage tomorrow. It was over an August bank holiday. It was a Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So it was a Sunday. He said, I'm on stage tomorrow. If you come up and pick a crab, and I'll ask you a couple of questions, I'll do a crab dish. I said, yeah, no, brilliant. I said, but I've never done anything like this before. Fishermen go to sea for a reason. We don't like people that much, do we? So it's very difficult. I've always said, Jim, you can always tell a fisherman in a high street because he's the one with his head down. He don't want to be noticed. So when you're up on stage, it's a bit different. It's on YouTube as well. We had a friend film it. Anyway, he never turned up on the Sunday. So there's this hour slot kicking around, and the organisers come to me and said, look, do you want to do it on your own? And I went, I can't do that. And they bugged me, and I says, no, all right then, I'll do it. And I followed Raymond Blanc. He was on before me, and there's the Italian couple down in Bray, the Caucases. They were behind me, and I'll tell you what, my pants couldn't hold any more in. I was really that bad. So they brought me up on stage, and I thought, well, I know about crab, I know about fishing. Let's just break it all the way back. And then it kind of started from there, really, with forward facing to the public to try to eat more seafood, but I had one chance meeting with a lad called Andy Hunting at that festival. He was there to review the festival. He's got a website called Andy's Kitchen, and it was the biggest food blog in Europe. And I come across his number, and I phoned him up. And I said, look, I can't remember meeting you, but I've come across your card. I said, I need some media support here on how to get the message across for the public. And he said, well, what are you thinking of doing? And I had a mad idea. I said, I want to set up the UK's very first inland seafood festival. And he kind of looked at me and put the phone down. He thought I was crazy. He phoned back about 2-3 days later, and he says, been thinking about it. I think you could be onto something. So we set up crab stock festivals, and we managed to do 5 festivals inland, but it was very difficult to get sponsorship and money because people couldn't understand that you walk into Northampton, there's a 100-ton beach there, there's a Victorian pier, there's boats, and it's all it is seafood. And I think it needs to be done again now. It's all right holding seafood festivals on the coast. That goes hand in hand, doesn't it? You go to the coast, there's a seafood festival on. But when you put it inland, there's a square peg and a round hole. People can't get it. That's like going on to Newland Market or Brixton Market and holding a butchery festival or a barbecue festival. But that's the community. We managed 5 festivals. We done well, but we just couldn't financially support it.
But it's like taking the mountain to Muhammad.
Oh, yeah, and that's where we need to hold it, Jim, is inland. But out of that come my unique pop-up restaurant, Crab Stock and 2 Smoking Lobsters. Out of that festival come me and Andy as the Crab Stock Boys. And for 8 or 9 years, we've been on the road doing 20 festivals a year all the way around the country, promoting seafood. And so everything, it's got to be positive, even if something doesn't quite work. You've just got to find the positivity out of it. And now we get, this year's a little bit slower, but, and obviously the pandemic hit, but, we're still going strong as the Crab Stock Boys. I was at Plymouth this weekend cutting some scallops and picking a crab. And again, I walk up on stage with me and Andy. We're really cheeky. In one fictitious food festival, we just turned up with whelks, and that was it. And we'd done 7 dishes with whelks, and we got a bigger audience, and some of the named chefs up there doing foams in dehydrated cucumbers and stuff like that. Like, we just went up with the humble whelk. It's not about,
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
ingredients. It's about the
Yeah.
ingredients that takes you wherever you want to go. Like,
That's what I often say, Adrian. It's not about the chef; it's about the food.
Yeah, most definitely. It makes you wonder where you can get with a whelk, Jim.
Well, you've obviously got quite. That's fantastic, and my goodness, it's and really interesting listening to where you've come from because my goodness, how crab has been so important in your life.
Yeah, I know. You want to see my office at home? Not say I've got a fascination and a fetish over crab, but everything's just crab.
Yeah, well, starting with crab and then fishing for crab and
Yeah.
crab stock boys and I think it's fantastic,
Well,
and it's so important for the industry.
oh crikey, yeah. There needs to be. I've always said there needs to be more advocates in our industry. We can't let other bodies determine our future. We got to determine our own future. With Crab Stock and Two Smoke and Lobsters, our pop-up restaurant, we used to get booked a year ahead for that. And we used to do about 5 or 6 locations throughout the UK. As soon as we've advertised it, we used to sell out straight away. And I don't think we could do it now because the price of seafood, but we used to charge 50 quid. And on that platter, you would get a brown crab, lobster, fiddlers, whelks, scallops, oysters, mussels, langoustines. I used to get come down for all 50 quid. And we used to have 50 covers a day at the food festivals. But then we used to have some of the big chefs used to come and dine with us. I won't mention names because it'd be unfair, but who used to come and dine with us. But I did say, well, once we had George Lucas from Star Wars eat with us, him and his family,
Wow.
which is an eye opener. Sitting next to him, it's very difficult not to do R2-T2 with him. So that
Yeah,
walk around
that's
like a robot.
and
You are my
yeah.
father. So that was an eye
No, it's
opener.
fantastic. So really, it's almost in some ways like you've stumbled on things because you never thought you liked crab, and you've been in it all your life, and you weren't sure about taking the stage, and you're now
Oh,
you're a
it's
permanent feature
yeah,
in your life.
it's and all I go round with is a teaspoon, a rolling pin, and basic stuff. But we just have a laugh. We just try to get people to have a
I
go.
would I wouldn't say that. What's coming across to me is maybe a teaspoon and a rolling pin, but I'm fountain of knowledge,
Well, you would
an,
hope
an,
so.
an experience in the industry, and nothing. There's no substitute for experience.
No, I couldn't have done this 25 years ago. I wouldn't have had the confidence. But it's just strange, Jim, where it all goes. It's like 2 years ago. My partner Sarah, she's a qualified chef, and quite a talented fish chef as well. Because all we've been eating for the last 20, 30 years is seafood, really, and you learn more in the kitchen over a piece of fish, and you can go to any school with a recipe is only a guide, and you adapt and I've always pushed Sarah to better herself all the time. And we used to get 2 chefs in when we had the Crab Stock and Two Smoke and Lobsters with Andy. And she was learning to be public facing as well. Because chefs, as you know, is you don't see your customers, do you? Unless you make a purpose of going and actually seeing them. And then a couple of years ago, we had an opportunity to open a little seafood bistro down in Paynton Harbour called the Curious Crab. We managed 1 year and halfway through last year, but staffing levels, as you know, and it unfortunately a couple of things it just didn't work out. But we knew what to do with the Curious Crab. It was just simple. We must have had we opened up on August the 1st. We had a load of support from loads of people. We had 6 days to turn it around. Where I'm sitting now is in the Ecomotus office in Jason Monroe, in Kirsten Monroe. They were brilliant. Kirsten designed the menus. Jason was trying to do a little bit of the poor electrics and running around and doing this. And I used to do a little bit on Radio Devon. So I phoned Kerry White up that I go on her show. And don't forget, Jim, we only sit 23 inside and we had 4 tables outside. And I'd done a live broadcast on BBC Radio Devon. We'd done 220 covers on the first day, and I had to shut. I had to shut one day the following week so our feet could catch up with our bodies. It was just mental. But everything there was just caught, delivered same day, and on the menu that night. We had a basic menu, but we just worked on specials, just what was caught in Devon, and as we kind of moved forward, we took salts and peppers away. We started using seaweeds as seasoning. We put a chicken dish on and we put a burger on. But and it's silly having a seafood bistro right on Paignton Harbour and you're not using fishermen from Paignton Harbour. So they used to phone me up at 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon and say, right, we got this, and this. I says, right, I'll have that. And outside the bistro was 2 big yellow boards, and it's what's coming in that day. And the strap line was, once it's gone, but we're here tomorrow. Cooked to order, cooked fresh. We made our own sauces, and it was just really popular. And then a couple of things that made it unique as well. I'm giving secrets away here, but you don't have to be fancy to do seafood. You've just got to let the seafood do what it was. We never had table names, something that you might be able to take over up there. All our tables were names of fishing boats that fished out of Paignton Harbour. The Independent, the Helen Clare, the Shirley Betty, the most prominent one out of Paignton Harbour where we lost a couple of friends in the early 80s, the My Emma. And people used to book up their favourite tables. We had a little table of 2, and our mackerel comes off a boat called La Petite Patou, and it was the smallest one. And then somebody says, "Oh, how can we leave a review?" So I give them a Sharpie, and they started writing up on the walls, and the whole walls were covered. And that's real. If you can see comments in real time, that's better than any TripAdvisor or Google. Anybody can put whatever they want on there, but if it's up on the wall in Sharpie, done there and then, I think that's the best advocate. But we must have made it look easy because other people tried following our footsteps and ploughed loads of money into places down Paignton Harbour and not making it work. So we've done something right, Jim.
And is that all over the wall?
Oh, everywhere. The walls, the ceiling. If we ran out of room, we'd pick another wall. And it was quite warming, really, and it was all nice comments about the food, and then the service comes second, So and it's all to do with the seafood, just simple, plain, out the door. If it was gurnard and chips, it was gurnard and chips. Nothing else.
Yeah. And what's better than a gurnard?
I know, brilliant, isn't it? Absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely wonderful fish. Yeah. So that's really. No wonder you needed to stop. I think you should have needed to stop a few times to let your, as you called it, your legs catch up with the rest of your body, because you seem to not stand still for long.
I don't think you can, Jim, especially in our industry. There's a lot of problems with our as I said earlier, that it'd be nice if other fishermen and other skippers or anybody within the industry to be more forward-facing, get the public to see them and to understand there is a fishing industry, because the public could go down on any harbour. They sit there with an ice cream and a pasty, and they look at the boats and they don't understand the history of the harbour. They don't understand what actually goes on. I've dealt with loads of public over, and yet again, if our chefs, I don't think it is as bad now with our chefs. I think they've had to learn pretty quickly, and I think that's only the pressures from the public. It says, right, where did that piece of chicken come from? Where's your lamb and beef come from? Oh, by the way, where did you get your fish? And I think the chefs had to say, well, it's caught in Scrabster, it's off the Kingfisher, or it's caught in, well, where's the turbot come from? Well, it's off a day boat in Brixham. And I think they've had to do that now, because what we've done with the really interesting crab company, I think we was ahead of the game in 2011 and 12. We used to say where it all used to come, and I used to walk into some of the top restaurants in London and in the Cotswolds, and on the pass they put blackboards up or whiteboards, and I used to name the boats where everything come from. And I used to do a lot of front house training as well, which I still do. So a restaurant would pull me in, work in the kitchens on yield, what to do, what to use, the tongue now, the cheeks. It's like I'm starting to use scallop skirts now on the stage in Plymouth. I cured and cooked up scallop skirt. Beautiful. Use it for garnish or whatever. It's to get them to understand. And then I used to pass that on to front of house. So if you're sat down and there's a nice bit of turbot presented to you, instead of the customer saying, oh, where's this turbot from? Instead of them saying, oh, I'll go and find out, the front of house then says, oh, it come in yesterday. It was caught from this boat. And it's trying to get the public connected to that seafood in anywhere, any gaze. And I always say to the public, just look for the 3 W's really, or ask the 3 W's, is when it was caught, where and who. And I think you're pretty well there then on your seafood, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. My menu every night has a footer with the name of the boat that landed the fish.
Yeah,
every night.
Got to be, isn't it?
And I think, as it's called nowadays, traceability.
Yeah, yeah.
And what are better traceability is in telling them who caught it, where he caught it,
yeah,
and when he caught it. There's no better traceability than that.
No, and it's not easy. It's not that difficult to do, because if they're selling on a market, the name of the boat that the wholesalers are buying or the buyers are buying. And as you know, as well as we do, we export everything. We're still trying to export everything. There's been a massive hold on imported fish. But how do you get to the public to go and eat another 2 portions of fish a week? I don't know. Apart from keep having a go, really, and just trying to get that connection, isn't it?
It's what the industry has to start looking at.
Most definitely. Most definitely. I was in the fortunate position last year to be made up vice chair of Fishing into the Future. And we was in Scotland a couple of weeks ago at the Skipper Expo launching our new Porto website. First reason was to get a one-shop stop for the fishermen to find out about MCA problems, how the structure works, scientists. That's how we've constructed it. But we're slowly moving down as a charity, which is a neutral charity in the UK. It's been going since 2015. It's to try to get more public facing as well, where you can source, where you can find. I know there's some brilliant websites out there now. Through that pandemic, had a problem, and a lot of fishermen or wholesalers had to change their tack quite quick to keep a bit of fish moving on. And I think there's some, yet again, I won't mention companies or names because it's not fair to promote one and not to promote, but there's some fishermen now that selling direct to the public. And I think we need more of that, to be fair. So the industry has changed in the last couple of years because of the pandemic, for sure.
It's interesting. One of the terms I often use, Adrian, is one of the positives out of the pandemic was we discovered a market we forgot we had.
Yeah, definitely. You step into Europe and you know where your stuff comes from. We don't know where it comes from in England. We're still far behind, aren't we?
Yeah, but we need to catch up and we need to get going. How do you see, you're also, are you still a Seafish ambassador?
Ah, right. I'm a trainer, an accredited trainer for them. I was at a reception last week, Seafish reception last week, and I think I was talking to Seafish, and I think the ambassadorial role is not there anymore. So they're looking at other aspects. I was, um, but I think they're changing the structure of Seafish a little bit, and I don't know if it'll be an ambassadorial role or another role with them. So I can't really say much more than that, but I was, yes.
Okay. Yeah, but I just feel that what the industry needs, I would like to get your view on it. I think the industry badly needs people exactly like yourself, industry people, marketing,
Got to be.
doing it. Yeah,
It's
the industry taking control.
Yeah, I know people see fish in different lights and different guises, but they are there, and I think sea fish can only get better by the input that fishermen and wholesalers can give them. They can only lead so much, but they need more information from people to change the way they look at stuff. Um, it's funny when me and Andy was in our full flow um, before the pandemic with our social media outlets. Between Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and the websites, we was getting 1 million hits a month, and that's that takes a little bit of doing. But we was probably, I think, about 4 years ago. I think we was the most hit duo in the UK through Seafish. It's phenomenal. We was putting videos up and doing stuff, getting 20, 40,000 hits within hours. But it's only running social media correctly. But now I think social media has changed since we was working it down. I always say now social media is 2-3 seconds long. If you're not caught in the first 2-3 seconds, you keep scrolling. I think social media has gone the other way now. It's too quick. You've got to do a lot more work to get that them stopping and watching you now. So, but you're right. There's some brilliant people around the country pushing seafood, but I think we could do with a few hundred more. Really, it's there in. I'm not actively fishing anymore. I've got no companies actively in the industry. I'm not making any money from the industry, but I'm still pushing their industry. They need to. In a minute, I'll have to move on to something else. They'll have to start pushing their industry. I don't even get me crab and lobster for free to demo with anymore. So they, when the Adrian Bartletts of the world go, and there's brilliant people all the way, when they move on to something else, they need to start thinking, well, somebody needs to start pushing this in a minute themselves. And that's not being cruel or rude. If I can carry on doing this until I peg it, I will. But I can't
Yeah,
carry
but you
on
need to
forever.
get rewarded. No, nobody can carry on forever without getting rewarded, and you should be. And the industry should be. I've an interview later on today with a guy, I'm sure you'll know him, Jimmy Buchan.
Yeah, I was with Jimmy up in Scotland a couple of weeks ago.
Well, I'm talking to him, shortly, and I see him as the exact same industry. Huge, lots of experience, been a fisherman, knows the industry. He's ashore now. He's boat Amity. He's now Amity Fish, and he's lifting awards right, left, and centre.
Yeah, no, I bumped into Jimmy at
But
the Skipper Expo for sure. Um, but you're right. What? Yeah, you know, I bumped into Jimmy in China. And we become, every so often we bump into each other, and you need another load of Jimmys up there. You need a load of other people down here to keep moving it forward. But yeah, he's a massive advocate for your seafood for sure, without a shadow of a doubt. But there's only so many hours in the day, Jim, isn't there, do what we need to do.
That's right, absolutely. And there need, as you say, there need more Adrian Bartletts and Jimmy Buchans. And there are plenty. We just need to motivate it and get, and it's a wonderful product we're selling.
Yeah, best in the world, isn't it? Best in the world.
Absolutely.
Most diverse and best in the world. For sure.
Yeah, yeah. And another thing I often tell my customers when I go around the tables is it's the biggest UK. It'll be the biggest multi-species fishery in the world.
Yeah, people don't realise that, do they? But then, it's just our industry leading to the future now, really, where I'm sat now and what we're trying to achieve. But the industry's been hit three ways, really, and it's been hit by Brexit, it's been hit by the pandemic, and now it's been hit by the conflict, or however you want to call it, between Russia and Ukraine. So in Europe, we've been walloped in three different areas in below the belt. But there's 67 million people in this country. Now, surely there must be a way of tapping into that lot to try a different piece of fish, or instead of asking for a prawn cocktail, and we know the prawns are farmed down in somewhere in Bangladesh or India, is have a whelk cocktail, or use the lesser species, do the harder species. We was in Peterhead the week before, and I've never seen so much fish in all my life. And last week they landed at 17 boats, 5,520 boxes of fish. Where it's all going abroad, and that's where it's a little bit wrong, really.
Well, one of the things that concerns me, Adrian, is we're hearing just now about the issues with Russian fish. 30% of the fryers in the UK use Russian fish. That's 30% Russian, but as far as the fryers are concerned, as you well know, it's over 90% of the frying comes from abroad. And I mean, you'll read in the newspapers or hear in a news bulletin that fish and chip shops are thinking they have to close down, and yet the Scottish fishermen have a grade of especially for that trade, and it's called chipper haddocks.
Yeah,
you can go to any fish market in Scotland, and when boats are landing, one of the grades is a chipper haddock. Yeah. So why do they need to close?
I know. If I opened up a fish and chip shop, you'd be using UK fish, wouldn't you? I don't understand well, that's just how the world moves, isn't it? It's cheaper and more convenient to buy it somewhere else because they're paying the levy to get it here. And sometimes, I've always had this thing between Canadian lobsters and native lobsters, and I can get booted out of London over 50p difference, and they're buying Canadians cheaper. But they got that disease, it's highly regulated, it's, now what's happening with the new animal welfare sentence now that's coming in online, and it's more and more difficult, and surely it's simple, Jim. Just go local, and you got to just go local. Absolutely. Local for everything.
Absolutely.
I think it'll end up save. Okay, you got to move bulk on. Obviously China with crab, you got to move bulk on, but surely you restrict them and just move on a local market. But
absolutely, it's the same way local shops. I just take the attitude: if you don't use them, you lose them. And what are we going to do then? But I mean, as you say, we have the most wonderful product in the world, and there's a mismatch between the end user and the fisherman. And I just think people like you and Jimmy Buchans and Adrian Bartlett are so important to the industry.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be recognised one day, Jim, for that.
Well,
but hey,
yes,
but I'm not in it to be recognised. I'm just do it because I love it. As simple as that. Simple as.
Yeah. Well, it's my life, and don't know. I say I would do something else, but I don't know anything else.
Trevor, is if people start looking for something back, I think that's where you've got to be unselfish towards what you got to do. If I sat on this road to look to have something at the end of it, I probably wouldn't keep going. You just do it because you love it, don't you? And it's what I've always known, really. So I'm not looking for anything from the industry at all. I'll get enough from it, but as I say, you just got to keep trying to. But my time now is getting less and less because where I sit now with the future, if I can carry on doing a few demos, but I'm sat in an office now, and I got introduced to a lad called Jason Monroe 2.5 years ago, and through a mutual friend of ours, and it was in January of the year of lockdown. I know we're in 2022 now, but I'm no good with time or days, months, or years. It just goes ahead. And I sat with Jason, with a friend of ours, and he started talking to me about hydrogen and the effects what hydrogen can do and the benefits of what hydrogen can do for engines, diesel and petrol engines. So we had about 3 or 4 cups of coffee, and I listened to him, and I sit here 2.5 years on. I still don't understand his mind and his brain and his brilliance, but I understand the effects of what hydrogen can do within the marine industry. So I was still working for a crab company down on the south coast. And then I thought, there must be something into it. So mine and Jason's relationship started working, and I got introduced to his wife, Kirsten. And the relationship started developing for the understanding. And as we sit here now, our system's called the Eco Pro, and we're up on a couple of boats out of Peterhead and Fraserburgh now. We're on one of Sandy West's boat and a few other boats up there. And the way the price of fuel's been going, and it's just gone off the chart. Brixham moved up 3 pence from yesterday. It's at 86p, and I know some places are around £1 now. So I started working with Jason and Kirsten, and I says, look, the only way we can get on boats on a legal aspect is we need to talk to the MCA. So I phoned them straight away. I phoned one person in particular that I knew would be quite open to this technology, and they've been very good. And then they said, right, you need type approval. So we worked across type approval, and we got our systems fully approved worldwide, and we have the MCA. And now we're just starting the company's been in R&D. Jason and Kirsten's been in R&D for about 14 years, I'm led to believe. So I'm small fry at 2 and a bit years in this, but we're ready to go now, and we're sticking our system on the boats. One, for emissions, we're reducing emissions on the boats. We're an emission company, but how we deal with the emissions at the engine side is there's a couple of byproducts. One's fuel savings, Jim. Most boats now are running very good on a 10% fuel saving, but if you're burning 2,000-3,000 litres a week, 10% is 10%. Once you understand the system a little bit more, you can achieve more, but we don't say any more than 10%, because if we say too much more, it's like a kid going into a sweet shop and having free reign, and then you're taking a kilo of sweets from them coming out the door. So we won, whilst we was in Scotland, Ecomotus, Eco Pro won Product of the Year with the Fish and News Awards, which we went up against a Scottish product, and I think the Scottish product nose was put out of joint, because seeing the award was in Aberdeen, but it was a public vote, and we won. And we can't believe it. But 1 being shortlisted, and 2 winning it a few weeks ago. So, and we're working at government level across Scotland. Unfortunately, with Scotland, with Marine Scotland, there's no funding for boats. They're putting a lot of pressure on the Scottish fleet to go green, Jim, and reduce their carbon, but there's no funding, and we're hoping to change that. In England, with the Marine Management Organisation money, FAST, we can get 50% funding for our system on England registered vessels, but Wales and Northern Ireland's got the same problem. So now my role more so within the industry is probably kind of keeping the boats fishing more so and reducing their costs. And if I
That's
get
a
called
major
up,
importance.
oh yeah. Well, it's I moaned when it went to about 9p a litre. Now say on average in the mid-80s, and it ain't going to take much to tip the balance. If the price of fish stays as it is, the boats continue fishing. But if the price of fish goes, there's a lot of boats tied up now because of price of fuel. They're looking how to go to sea more efficient and picking their days, picking slack tides, using the tides if they're towing a lot more instead of pushing against the tides. So, the future now is, to try to get our system on these boats to give them a chunk of savings with fuel. There's other savings as well on top of that. But if we don't keep these boats going and support them in some which shape or form, I'm not going to have anything to stand up on stage with to promote any rate. So I've kind of reversed a little bit to go to the boats and just try to keep them fishing, really.
Well, I mean, one of the two now, but the biggest concerns, one's just claimed on top of the other, quota they've been cut, and it's becoming a real problem now, and now with the fuel price increase on top of that, it's a real concern. I mean, you're talking about 3,000 litres a week. I was on a boat yesterday, Adrian, in Scrabster, and he takes 70,000 litres. And the skipper was also telling me, I'll not be unfair and mention the port names, but he compared the price. He came to Scrabster, he got a comparison on fuel, and the difference was 7p a litre.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. No, we we are on boats doing 2,000-3,000 litres. You'll have to pass my number on to him if he's just chucked in 70,000 litres. Imagine a 10% saving on him.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
we are talking to some of the bigger boats up in the Shetlands at the moment as well. But the industry needs all the help it can get, really. But it's like fuel at the pumps. Why does motorway garages always charge more than a town forecourt? It doesn't make sense, does it? And where's the cap and where's the support for the fishing industry? The pressures are on the POs and the managers of the fleets and the companies to reduce their efforts, but there's no support for that effort. And hopefully Ecomotus can give them some support with fuel funding over the next 4 to 5 to 6 years, and to reduce the emissions and the carbon footprint, where there's a few different bodies now saying about the carbon release on the bottom now, isn't there? So hopefully our carbon, we can reduce the carbon footprint within the fleet and costs so they can make a living, really.
So how does this work, Adrian? It's hydrogen.
Yeah, it's we produce hydrogen out of diagnosed water, and the best place to store hydrogen is water. So we do it on demand. So basically, we go aboard a boat, Jim. Our system is priced on what it's burning per hour, or if they know the 24-hour burn, we just divide it by 24 hours. So the system would go on the boat, and we're standalone technology. We don't need the engine manufacturer's permission to go aboard the boats. If the boat's engine's under warranty, but most engine manufacturers only put 1 year warranty on the vessel. So after a year, we can go aboard. It's standalone technology. So we put it's called a knock reader on side of the engine by the block. in that tells our electronics the frequency of where the cylinder head or where the piston is in that cylinder head. If the engine's under load, or it's towing, or it's steaming, or it's idling, our electronics then, through our intelligent electronics, I should say, it tells the hydrogen production system how much hydrogen to produce in real time. Now, I won't go into it too much because the technology is really secure and really patented. But we put hydrogen in then into the air filter, okay, and then the natural combustion then brings the hydrogen into the cylinder head, and all we basically do is break the carbon chain down to burn all the fuel. So we're burning all the fuel in the cylinder head, which then reduces the emissions going out the exhaust, gives better fuel because we're burning all the fuel. We're not squirting loads in, you're burning all of it. All our systems are remotely monitored, so we can go into any system if it's, we're in on tractors and boats, and Jason in the team can look then if we need to increase the hydrogen production in real time, so we can adjust it all the way through, and hopefully we're starting our new tier 3 roadmap in the next couple of weeks to issue certification for these engines, existing engines. They're meeting new tier 3 requirements, so it's quite in depth. I learn about it every single day, but it's a South Devon invention, an England invention that can change all marine engines if it's outboards or even shore based with the trucks and vans and stuff like that. So that's
Going to a
where I
fisherman,
sit now.
going to a fisherman just now and saying that you can, one, reduces energy costs and reduce the emissions is win-win.
Yeah. Well, Marine Scotland needs to understand that. We're lobbying them, and the fisherman has given them some stick up there because it's still MMO money. We've through fast funding down in England, and that's the Fisheries and Seafood Scheme. They're running this for 3 years. So most boats get 50%. There's a handful under 12 metres static that get 80%. And I've written a letter to Victoria Apprentice saying, why don't you just do 80% across the board of all UK vessels? You're putting pressure on them, release the money to do that. So we've got a chance to get our teeth in. We've got funding. There's boats signing up and do the funding now. We're on some big companies. We're talking to a couple of big Scottish companies now, but it comes down to their money. But we do give, when Kirsten sends out the quote, you'll get a 3-year prediction of what you're saving. So if you're burning a lot of fuel after year 3, you've saved a significant amount of money. And if you even doing 5%, or even you can get up to the 20% fuel saving, and we got some boats up to 20%. It's huge amount of money these fleets can save. Massive. And hopefully by the end of the year, make them tier 3 compliant, which is our next big move. But it's a lot of work to work through the legislation of that. But we're slowly getting through it, So yeah.
I mean, it's really unfortunate to hear you saying that, but it's not of no surprise to me about Marine Scotland, because they just lost their way. I mean, I was told earlier today, for compliance, regulation, all that, the whole, for all their cover in Scotland, and they've been reduced to 27 staff. The rest are all on renewables.
Yeah. But it's all right putting pressure on an industry, but you've got to back that pressure up with something, with support or money. It's all right saying, right, you've got to reduce your carbon footprint on that boat now to meet the new requirements. But, give them some money to get there. Just don't tell them and then let them
Well,
worry about it.
that's one of the other problems fishermen in Scotland have just now, because with the concerns they have and real difficulties, they have a government that are washing their hands with them and have no interest.
No,
It's really quite disturbing.
no, we got loads of inquiries up there. As I say, we've been up and back and forth. We're hoping to start off on one boat in the Shetlands, Scalloway, hopefully in the next 3 or 4 weeks, and that could probably lead on to more. But they're always on about funding because they know there's fast funding in England, and that's where the unfair bit comes from, because MMO still fund Marine Scotland, so why don't they just fund them more and let Marine Scotland, seeing you're sat in Scrabston now, let's say it, drift it through to the fishermen, So, but we bumped into Marine Scotland at the Skipper Expo and had a good chat with them. The MCA is all ready to go up there, but it's
Yeah.
just getting that money through, isn't it? Just trying to trickle a bit of it through
Well,
to them.
you're well on the way if you've got the MCA behind you.
Yeah, no, the MCA are very supportive of us and understand it. They've seen it's such new technology for the marine industry. They've given every vessel, once installed, 5-year exemption for any future surveys or DTIs or class. Some of the boats are going over class now, aren't they? And so, yeah, no, the MCA, I know they do what they do, but to us, we hug them. We like them because they're very
Yeah,
supportive
absolutely.
towards us, and they've been absolutely marvellous, to be fair, with such new
Well, that's great.
technology.
I would like to think it had been that way because they can see what you've got. This obviously sounds very exciting.
Yeah, well, we're talking to your boat yards up there, and as soon as we can get the Tier 3 signed off, it'll be on every boat coming out the yards up there, and especially in England. The alternative is not is far, far more expensive, and it's not really environmentally healthy. With AdBlue and what they call SCRs, Jim, but we can that's costing them more money to go green because you've got to buy the AdBlue, and it's costing more on fuel to run the SCRs, where we can go aboard in a metre and a bit by 1.5 feet wide and produce hydrogen on demand. No structural changes, no stability changes. You just go in an engine room, boat it on. 6 hours later, you can start up and you start reaping the benefits of the system.
I can't help saying, Adrian, that it's your experience again, and going back to your days at fishing. This is, you can see that this. You obviously know the industry, you know the fishing, and you know this will work.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, we had I won't mention names, but we had an awkward skipper up at Peterborough. Not Peterborough, Fraserburgh or one of them, Peterhead or one of them. We went aboard it in his 60s, long in the tooth, rustic as rustic it ever can be. It's like me giving you that tip the other couple of months ago about the crab. I said, if it didn't work out, I'm not annoying a chef. I'm annoying a Scottish chef. I can't have that, can I? So, and within 5 minutes of talking to him and explaining, if he's, and you took it away, I said, oh, where do you fish then? Oh, no, we went through there a load of pots once and all that lot. And got, and it's just having that communication and breakdown and just understanding it don't make a difference. It's a very fickle business to be in, isn't it? You just got to talk
And
talk
with
on their
this,
same wavelength.
with this hydrogen and stuff like that, have the tanks on board?
No, it's non-pressurized, non-tanked. We store it in water and we produce hydrogen from electrolysis. So it's non-pressurized. There's no tanks. Engine starts. Our system starts up. The engine switch off. We switch off. There's no infrastructure on shore. You're not plugging it in. You're not filling anything up. It's just run off a de-iodinized water at about 20p a week to run. A beamer will probably use about, or one of the bigger boats up there is probably using 3/4 to a litre of water to produce what it needs to produce. So no, just boat on, plumb in, turn on, and go. with all the correct paperwork in place, I might add.
I'm going to give you a few. I'm going to send you a few phone numbers.
Yeah, no, send us the numbers, Jim.
Because,
Yeah, and if we're at that neck of the
because
woods, make sure you got Scottish produce on your plate, or we're not going to eat with you.
no, Adrian, I'll tell you. I've just said to some. I've been asked, or do I use any of this foreign frozen at sea? And my answer was, my father, who was a fisherman, unfortunately he's not with us now. He's buried in our home village, Helmsdale, which is 70 mile away from Scrabster. And I know that if I use one piece of foreign fish, he would start spinning so much that I would feel the vibration 70 mile away in Scrabster.
Yeah, you just couldn't do it, could you?
I could not do it.
No,
No.
That is like selling your soul to the devil, isn't it? You just couldn't do it, could you?
It's exactly what I also quote, selling your soul to the devil.
If we had
my good, with it being Russian fish just now, well, that's even more true, because the devil, we're seeing him every day, what he's up to.
I know. Well, the Pharaohs are still letting them fish in their waters, They didn't put
that's a real
put a stop
bone
of their trawlers fishing in the Pharaohs, have they?
And the fact that there's an agreement between the Faroes and the UK, you're getting them on the border and almost coming into the UK sector, which is just outrageous.
I don't know. It's the oldest, fishing is one of the oldest industries, and it's the least popular industry. Nobody wants us anymore, do they? Nobody wants us anymore, do they? And it's all
I don't believe that.
I can remember, just briefly, before we finish up, I can remember bringing the Creole into Weymouth one night, and the donkey engine's running, and I had a belly full of crab and lobster, and this guy shouted down off the quay, and he was a Londoner. He said, "Can you turn that off?" I said, "I've just bought that flat and I can't sleep." And I said, "Well, you give me 15 grand and I'll turn it off." I said, "Until that," I said, "No." And he made a massive hoo-ha over it, And I said to him, "You've just bought a flat in a working harbour, a working fishing harbour." I said, "What?" And he pushed and pushed and pushed to put plugins. So once you come alongside now, you plug the engine. This is back in the 90s, 96, 97, And I thought then, change is happening back then. And now you go to Weymouth, there's a few little boats in there, like most harbours, there's marinas and yachts, and the fishing boats are getting squeezed and squeezed and squeezed, aren't they? But the harbours were built up on fishing, weren't it? Fishing and importing and exporting goods,
I'm surprised you're not telling me you were squeezing and squeezing and squeezing him with your hand round his neck.
No, I think he was a lawyer, if I remember rightly. I don't think, Jim, I could have strangled him. I must admit, though, if you want to strangle everybody in Orange, we'd be all locked up in one cell, wouldn't we? Be doing this from bloody Wentworth or something, wouldn't we? We can't do it.
Yeah.
You've got to be bigger than them.
No, well, I would just like to finish up by thanking you so much for coming on the show, and it's really interesting. There's such a future, that with the hydrogen and that. My goodness, you're on board something that's got an eye to the future, and it's going to be so important the way things are going.
Yeah, it's funny where life takes you. It's taken me from crab to hydrogen. So, and every day I get up, it's always different, always new, always learning. And it seems to be where, I'll always carry on with fishing into the future as vice chair. I think we get 3 years at that. I don't think I'll ever be brave enough to make chair. But I'm proud to be connected to them. I'm certainly proud to be connected to Ecomotus and what we can do with the industry. And life is not boring, Jim. It's certainly not boring.
I can see that, but also it must make you feel good. Yet it's almost like you're in a position that you're able to put something back into the industry.
Yeah, I thought I could do it by selling crab and lobsters and seafood, but obviously, now focus is on the boats. The focus has got to be the boat, especially the position that Ecomotors is in with the industry. And I enjoyed Saturday cutting up some scallops and frying up a bit of skirt and picking a crab in my teaspoon. But I think that might be slowly coming to an end, and be a little bit more choosy where I do that, because my time is certainly, full on now with Ecomotors for sure.
Okay, thank you very much, Adrian.
No, brilliant. Well, thanks for inviting us, Jim. I've enjoyed this. I
No,
must admit, I've really enjoyed it.
well, it's been really, really interesting. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Seafood Matters podcast. You can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. You can join me on Instagram and Facebook by searching for @Seafood Matters podcast. If you have any questions or episode suggestions, please email me at jim@seafoodmatterspodcast.com or get in touch through my website, seafoodmatterspodcast.com.